After that night, she gets pregnant with the baby of the CEO, who has no heirs. It was supposed to be just one night, a whirlwind of champagne, stolen glances, and reckless decisions that neither of them had time for. But there it was, Mia Carter, a struggling graphic designer, barely making rent in the heart of the city, found herself at a high society charity gala she definitely didn't belong at. She wasn't rich. She wasn't connected. She wasn't even invited. But her best friend worked catering and slipped her in through the back door with a borrowed dress and a warning. Don't do anything stupid. Of course, she did. One thing led to another. Too many glasses of wine, a quiet corner away from the noise, and the kind of chemistry that crackled like static electricity. He was charming in that dangerous way, the kind that made your stomach drop and your pulse race. Tall, dark, confident enough to make you forget your own name. And when he kissed her, it felt like the world stopped spinning, if only for a second. But then came the morning after, and the reality hit like a freight train. He was gone. No note, no number, just a crumpled dress on the floor and the scent of expensive cologne lingering in the air. At first, Mia told herself it was nothing, a fling, a mistake, the kind people laugh about later over drinks. But 2 weeks passed, then 3. Her period never showed. The test came back positive. Pregnant. She was pregnant with his baby. Except now, she had to figure out who exactly he was. Because the man she spent that unforgettable night with was none other than Alexander Vance, the elusive CEO of Vance Tech, a billionaire known more for his cold business tactics than any personal life. Rumored to be ruthless, untouchable, and most importantly, heirless. No wife, no kids, no one to inherit the empire he built from the ground up. Mia had no idea who he really was until she saw his face on the cover of a business magazine. Days later, her stomach dropped. Not because of the money or the power, but because of what this meant. What she was carrying inside her wasn't just a baby. It was his legacy, the one thing the entire business world thought he'd never have. She tried calling him, tried sending messages, even went to his office once, but was stopped at the front desk by a receptionist who looked at her like she was crazy. "Mr. Vance doesn't take unscheduled meetings," she said, eyes narrowing as if Mia was some gold digger trying to pull a stunt. But this wasn't a stunt. This was real. And now, every day that passed without an answer made her more anxious, more scared, because Mia knew she couldn't raise this child alone. Not with the kind of life they were stepping into. But how do you tell a man like Alexander Vance that he's going to be a father? How do you knock down walls built from billions and silence? What she didn't know was that fate had other plans. Because the same night she decided to track him down again, someone else found her first. A black car pulled up outside her apartment. 2 men stepped out, suits too clean, expressions too serious. One of them handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a single sentence written in elegant handwriting. "We know everything. Come with us, or stay away. Your choice." That was it. No explanation, no options, just a decision that could change everything. And so, standing in front of her tiny apartment door, clutching a piece of paper that felt heavier than the truth she carried inside her, Mia realized something. There was no turning back now. Mia's hands trembled as she stared at the note. The ink still smelled faintly of something expensive. Cologne, maybe. Or the paper itself. She glanced back at the 2 men waiting by the car. They didn't speak, didn't move closer, just stood there like statues, watching her with unreadable expressions. She could run, slam the door, and pretend none of this was happening. But deep down, she knew that wouldn't work. Whoever sent them already knew where she lived, knew about the baby, and if they were willing to come out in broad daylight, then they weren't afraid of being seen. That scared her more than anything. With one last breath, she grabbed her coat and stepped outside. The cold air hit her face like a slap, but it helped clear her head. One of the men opened the back door for her without a word. She slid inside, the leather seats cool beneath her fingers. The windows were tinted so dark she couldn't see out. The driver didn't speak either. No questions, no small talk, just silence. The ride felt endless. She watched the city blur, past whenever a streetlight flickered through the glass, her mind racing faster than the car beneath her. Was this Vance? Did he finally decide to respond after weeks of ignoring her? Or was this someone else entirely? When they pulled up to a sleek, high-rise building downtown, Mia's stomach twisted. Vance Tech headquarters. She'd only ever seen it from the outside. Glass towers that seemed to scrape the sky, guarded by security cameras, and suits who looked like they'd eat trouble for breakfast. Inside, the lobby was quiet but buzzing with invisible energy. Everyone moved with purpose. No one looked at her twice. The men led her into an elevator without explanation, pressing the top floor button. Her heart pounded louder with every second. The doors opened into a private office space that looked more like a penthouse than a workspace. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the entire skyline. Expensive art lined the walls. A desk sat in the center, but no one was behind it. Instead, a woman stepped forward. Tall, elegant, sharp-eyed. Her hair was pulled back into a tight bun, and her black dress screamed power. "Mia Carter," she said, voice calm but firm. "We've been expecting you. Who are you?" Mia asked, stepping back slightly. "My name is Evelyn Hart. I'm Mr. Vance's legal advisor." Mia swallowed hard. "So, he knows." Evelyn nodded. "He does. And we need to discuss what happens next." The words sent a chill through her spine. "There's nothing to discuss. He doesn't even know me. We had one night." That resulted in a child. Evelyn interrupted smoothly. "And given Mr. Vance's current situation, that changes everything." Mia blinked. "What do you mean, his situation?" Evelyn gestured toward a pair of chairs near the window. "Sit down. This might take some time." Reluctantly, Mia complied. Evelyn took a seat across from her, folding her hands neatly on her lap. Alexander Vance has spent years building an empire, but what the public doesn't know is that his health has been declining for some time. His doctors have warned him. He may not live another 5 years. Mia's breath caught in her throat. Evelyn continued. "He has no heirs, no siblings. His parents passed years ago. If he dies without an heir, the board will fight over the company until it collapses under its own weight. That's not just bad for business. It's catastrophic for thousands of employees, investors, and families who rely on Vance Tech." "So, you're saying you're carrying the only possible heir to the Vance legacy?" Mia shook her head. "No, that can't be right. I'm not some fairy tale princess. I'm just me." "You're carrying his child," Evelyn said firmly. "And that makes you the most important person in his life, right now." Mia's mind spun. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. She was supposed to tell him. He'd freak out, maybe help, maybe disappear, not send lawyers and cars and drop bombs about his health. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "To protect the future," Evelyn said simply. "You'll be taken care of, financially, medically, emotionally, whatever you need. In exchange, you agree to let Alexander be part of the child's life. And if I say no, Evelyn's eyes darkened slightly. Then things get complicated. Before Mia could ask what she meant, the office doors swung open, and there he was, Alexander Vance, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a suit that screamed authority. His face was carved, from stone, expression unreadable. But when his eyes landed on Mia, something shifted. Not anger, not relief. Something deeper, something dangerous. I think it's time we talked, he said, voice low and steady. Mia stood slowly, her pulse roaring in her ears. This wasn't just about a baby anymore. It was about power, legacy, and secrets that could tear everything apart. And as the two of them locked eyes across the room, neither of them knew what would happen next. But one thing was certain. Their story was far from over. Mia didn't move. She couldn't. Alexander Vance stood in front of her like a force of nature, silent, intense, and impossible to ignore. The air between them crackled with everything they hadn't said, everything they couldn't say. Evelyn cleared her throat and stood. I'll give you two some time. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving just the two of them in the vast, quiet space. Mia's heart pounded. She had imagined this moment 100 times. What she'd say, how she'd make him understand. But now that he was here, all the words felt too small. Alexander finally spoke. Is it true? She met his gaze, steady this time. Yes, he exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. You have no idea what kind of storm this is about to create. I think I'm starting to, she said quietly. He moved closer, but not too close. There was still distance between them, not just physical, but emotional. Years of different lives lived on opposite sides of the world, even if they were standing in the same room. I don't do surprises, he admitted. And I definitely don't do unplanned parenthood. Mia crossed her arms. Trust me, neither did I. A silence settled between them, thick with tension and something else. Something like understanding. Then Alexander surprised her. I believe we should get married. Mia blinked. What? You heard me. That's insane, is it? He stepped back, eyes narrowing slightly. You're carrying my child. I don't have much time left. And if I'm going to leave something behind that lasts longer than me, it has to be more than just a company. It has to be family. Mia shook her head. You don't just propose because of a baby. No, he agreed. But I'm proposing because I remember that night. I remember you. You weren't just another face. And I've spent weeks trying to pretend this wasn't real, trying to convince myself I could walk away. His voice softened. But I can't. Mia swallowed hard. This wasn't how any of this was supposed to go. She came here expecting rejection. Maybe even a fight. Not this. Not a future built on an impossible beginning. Still, doubt gnawed at her. What happens when the baby's born? When you get sicker? What happens to me then? Alexander looked out the window, watching the city lights flicker below. That's why we're getting a prenuptial agreement drawn up. Full financial protection for you and the child. A trust fund, a home, security, everything you need. And what about us, Em? She asked softly. He turned back to her. That part we'll figure out together. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't even close. But it was honest. And somehow, that meant more. Weeks later, the headlines exploded. CEO Alexander Vance secretly weds mystery woman. Unplanned heir to billion-dollar empire. Mia barely read them. She was too busy adjusting to her new reality, his world, his life, his expectations. They weren't living in some fantasy. They argued. They clashed. Sometimes, she missed her old apartment and the chaos of her old life. But every time she felt overwhelmed, she'd look at the ultrasound picture taped to the fridge, or feel the flutter beneath her ribs, and remember why she was here, for the baby, for the future, for the second chance neither of them saw coming. And as the months passed, something unexpected happened. They started falling in love. Not fast, not easy, but real. When the baby was born, a healthy little boy with Alexander's eyes and Mia's stubbornness, the entire Vance Tech board gathered for the first official announcement. "This is my son," Alexander said, holding the tiny bundle like it was the most fragile thing in the world. "And one day, he will lead this company, but only if he chooses to." Mia stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. She wasn't sure where life would take them next. Cancer was still looming. The future was still uncertain, but they had each other. They had their family, and that was enough. As the cameras flashed and the world watched, Mia smiled. Because sometimes the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most beautiful endings.